When Burkina Faso's young leader Ibrahim Traoré faced one of the most difficult decisions of his life, the sun had not yet risen. The secret recordings in his hands clearly revealed that his most trusted general was plotting a coup against him. This story tells of the moment a leader was betrayed, the courageous decision he made, and the dawn that changed a nation's destiny. You will witness how trust can crumble in an instant, the dark side of politics, and what true patriotism truly means. The quiet streets of Ouagadougou had not yet seen the dawn. In the corridors of the presidential palace, only the footsteps of guards echoed. Ibrahim Traoré sat at his desk, reading the file in front of him for the third time. Every line, every word confirmed his suspicions about one of his most trusted men. He had spent hours examining these documents, visualizing every detail in his mind, trying to absorb the magnitude of the shock he was experiencing. But the truth was out there, and now he had to make an inevitable decision. General Moussa Khanat was one of Traoré's closest military advisors. Together they had planned Burkina Faso's future through countless nights, the withdrawal of French forces, regional security strategies, army modernization, inviting the Wagner Group to the country. He had consulted Khanat's opinion on every critical decision. Sometimes they would even meet with their families for private dinners in the evenings, discussing the country's problems in an intimate atmosphere. Khanat's wife had become friends with Traoré's wife, and their children had played together. This wasn't just a business relationship. It was a genuine friendship, but now, the documents in his hands showed what a huge mistake this trust and friendship had been. 2 days ago, a conversation caught during routine phone surveillance by the National Intelligence Service changed everything. In fact, this surveillance was also coincidental. Intelligence teams, while monitoring the activities of foreign companies, had started monitoring the communications of a French mining company operating in Burkina Faso. There were suspicions that this company was attempting to illegally profit from the country's gold mines. However, this surveillance, conducted as part of routine operations, had yielded a completely unexpected result. The recordings contained Khanat's voice, and they had confirmed this with certainty. Voice analysis experts had conducted tonal comparisons, confirming it beyond any doubt. The person on the other end was not just a representative of the French company operating in Burkina Faso, but also an agent responsible for France's secret operations in Africa. This information made the content of the conversation even more chilling. The phone conversation had lasted exactly 37 minutes, and every minute was filled with confessions that would turn Traoré's world upside down. Are we ready for the operation? The French representative had asked. There was urgency in his voice, as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Senior officials in Paris want results. Traoré's popularity is also affecting other leaders in Africa. This situation is harming France's strategic interests in the region. We're almost ready. We just need to place our people in a few more key positions, Khanat had replied. There was neither regret nor hesitation in his voice. He spoke as if he were talking about the most natural thing. Traoré is very popular right now. We have to admit that the people really love him. But this situation won't last forever. When economic difficulties increase, when unemployment rises, people will change their tune. That's when we'll step in. What about the situation within the army? Do we have commanders we can trust? Of course we do. We've been preparing the infrastructure for this for years. Some commanders are with us for ideological reasons, others for financial concerns. After all, everyone has a price. Most of the commanders of critical units are now under our control, especially the units around the capital are completely in our hands. Timing is very important. Our friends in Paris are getting impatient. Traoré's cooperation with Wagner is weakening France's position in Africa. We must intervene in the situation now. Don't worry, everything will be ready within 6 months, maybe even earlier. Then Burkina Faso will return to its old days. Relations with France will normalize, economic cooperation will increase, the people will eventually understand that this is good for them. Intelligence teams had also recorded the continuation of the conversation, and this part was even more detailed. Khanat was talking about his supporters within the army. He explained in detail which commanders were on their side, which units could be taken control of, which strategic points should be captured first. He said that half of the Air Force Command was already with them and that there were people in important positions in the land forces as well. The most shocking part was that the plan was not just a military coup but also aimed to render Traoré completely politically ineffective. We're not planning to kill him, Khanat had said. That would be too risky and would provoke the people's reaction, but we'll keep him under house arrest. The story we'll present to the media will be this. Traoré lost his mental balance and became unable to govern the country. He was temporarily removed from office for public health. Of course, it won't be temporary, but the people won't know that. So who will govern the country afterwards? Will establish a temporary military council. I'll also be on this council. After 6 months, we'll transition to civilian rule. But by then, the people running for office will be people we control. So ultimately, Burkina Faso will still be under our control. As if this conversation wasn't enough, the recording showed that Khanat had given other details as well. He had explained Traoré's daily routine, what security vulnerabilities existed in the palace, which security guards could be bought. He even knew in detail at what hours Traoré was alone, who he met with in which meetings. This was not just political betrayal but also the complete abuse of personal trust. Traoré closed the file and walked toward the window. Ouagadougou's lights were still on, but the first purple colors were beginning to appear on the eastern horizon. For years he had been fighting for this city, for this country breaking French influence, being a true representative of the people, working for Africa's independence. He questioned all these ideals again in the face of a trusted man's readiness to betray them. He wondered how many others there were, how many more people were preparing to stab him in the back. These thoughts gnawed at his mind. He picked up his phone and called Security Chief Madou Orago. Madou was Traoré's childhood friend. They had grown up together, become soldiers together, been promoted together. If there was anyone he could trust in this world, it was Madou. The phone was answered on the second ring. President? Madou, come to the palace immediately. And also, call General Khanat. We have an urgent meeting right now. Sir, it's just past 5 right now, and don't tell anyone. Just tell Khanat that the president wants to meet urgently. Don't give any other details. Understood, sir. I am coming right away. There was curiosity in Mamadou's voice, but he didn't ask questions. They had been working together for years, and he knew that Traoré's such urgent calls usually had very important reasons. Mamadou would be at the palace in 30 minutes, and Khanat would come in 45 minutes. Traoré was thinking about how to use these 45 minutes. He called Khanat's wife. The woman answered the phone with a sleepy voice. Hello? Fatima, this is Ibrahim. I'm sorry for waking you, but I urgently need to reach Musa. Of course, Ibrahim. I'll get him right away. Is there a problem? Business matter. Very urgent. There was concern in Fatima's voice. She called Khanat to the phone. A few minutes later, Connaught's voice was heard. Asterisk. Mr. President, what happened at this hour? Asterisk. Musa, come to the palace immediately. We're facing a very urgent situation. Asterisk. Of course, Mr. President. I'm coming right away. Which issue is it about? Asterisk. I can't talk on the phone. I'll explain when you get here. Asterisk. There was no suspicion in Connaught's voice. He even seemed a little curious. Perhaps this showed that he was really a good actor. Or maybe he was unaware that the phone taps had been discovered. In either case, what Traoré was going to do didn't change. Asterisk. Madhu was at the palace 10 minutes later. When he entered Traoré's room, he saw him standing by the window. There was something strange about Traoré's posture. His shoulders were tense, his hands clasped behind him, his gaze lost in the distance. Asterisk. Mr. President, I'm here. Asterisk. Traoré turned and looked at Mamadou. There was deep fatigue on his face, but also a determined expression. Asterisk. Madou, I'm going to show you something very important. But first, know this. The decisions we make tonight will affect our country's future. Asterisk. Understood, sir. What's the situation? Asterisk. Traoré gave Mamadou the file. On his desk. Asterisk. Read these, but don't make a sound. We'll talk when you're finished with everything. Asterisk. Madou opened the file and began reading. The first page contained a transcript of the conversation recordings. The second page had the intelligence services analysis. The third page detailed Connaught's financial relationships with the company in question. As Madou read, his face changed. Surprise, anger, disappointment. All these emotions appeared on his face in sequence. Asterisk. How is this possible? He finally murmured. Asterisk. That's the question I'm asking too. But this is the reality, Madou. Connaught has sold us out. Not just us, the country too. Asterisk. What are we going to do? Asterisk. We'll confront him when he arrives. But you'll be here, because I don't know how he'll react. Just then the palace security guard called, Mr. President, General Connaught has arrived. Asterisk. Send him in. Asterisk. When Connaught entered through the palace gates, he had his usual confident demeanor. His uniform was neatly dressed, his face showed no trace of suspicion. As he walked through the corridor, he greeted the security guards he knew. He even joked with some of them. When he stopped at the door of Traoré's room, he knocked and asked for permission. Asterisk. Come in. Asterisk. Connaught entered the room and greeted as usual. When he saw that Madou was in the room, he was a little surprised but didn't show it. Asterisk. Good morning. Mr. President, is there a special reason you called so early? Asterisk. Madou being here shows the seriousness of the situation. Asterisk. Traoré was sitting behind his desk, his hands clasped, an unreadable expression on his face. He studied Connaught as if seeing him for the first time. Asterisk. Sit down, Musa. Asterisk. Connaught sat in the chair across from him. Traoré pushed the file on the desk toward him. Asterisk. Would you examine this file? Asterisk. Connaught took the file and began to open it. As he read the first page, the expression on his face changed. His confident demeanor gave way to surprise. On the second page, he became completely tense. There was no point in acting anymore. His eyes went back and forth between the pages as if he couldn't believe what he was reading. Asterisk. What? What is this, Mr. President? Asterisk. You tell me. Isn't this your voice? Asterisk. Connaught put the file on the desk and straightened up. He realized the game was over, but he still showed a defensive reflex. Asterisk. How did you obtain this? Asterisk. That's not important. What's important is that one of my most trusted men is preparing to stab me in the back. Asterisk. The room was plunged into heavy silence. It lasted for several seconds. Khanat's breathing had become heavy. Mamadou was barely holding himself back. Traoré was watching both of them. Khanat took a deep breath. "Mr. President, things are not as simple as you think. You see the state of the country. The economic crisis is deepening. Popular dissatisfaction is increasing. Maybe. Asterisk, maybe." "What?" Traoré's voice had hardened. Asterisk. "Maybe it's the right decision to hand my country over to foreign powers? We have to be pragmatic. Severing our relations with France will cause us to become isolated in the region. Look at Mali, Niger. They also tried similar paths. But in the end, asterisk, in the end what? Asterisk, in the end they preserve their independence. Their peoples are determining their own destinies. And you're plotting to prevent this?" Asterisk. Khanat shook his head. "I was trying to protect you. If things get out of control, I wanted at least a smooth transition. We weren't planning to kill you." Asterisk. This statement had deeply wounded Traoré. The man was trying to make it seem like he was protecting him, but in reality he was making plans to return the country to the old colonial order. Moreover, while doing this, he was acting as if he was doing him a favor. Asterisk. "Musa, how many years have we been working together?" Asterisk. 6 years. For 6 years we fought together for this country's independence. You were also with me when we closed the French bases. You also supported bringing Russian advisors. You were also at the table when we made an agreement with Wagner. Now, are you telling me that all those days were lies? Asterisk. No, Mr. President, those days were real. Times have changed. Situations have changed. Russians are not ideal allies for us either. Maybe a more balanced policy. Asterisk. Enough. Traoré hit the table with his fist. You stand here as my advisor, but you're actually an agent of other powers. You disregard this country's future, the will of its people. Moreover, while doing this, you make it seem like you're doing me a favor. Asterisk. Khanat had fallen silent. He could no longer find anything to defend. Asterisk. How much money did you take? Traoré asked. Asterisk. What? Asterisk. How much money did you take to do this job? I'm curious. What was the price of selling your country? Asterisk. Khanat raised his head. I didn't take money. This isn't just about money. Asterisk. Really? Then what was it? Were you doing it for ideological reasons? Out of love for France? Asterisk. I was worried about the country's future. The current path is not sustainable. Asterisk. Which path? The path of independence? The path of people determining their own destiny? Asterisk. Madou couldn't stand it anymore. Musa, how could you do this? We considered you family. Our children grew up together. Asterisk. Khanat looked at Mamadou. There was regret in his eyes, but also stubbornness. Madou, you understand too. The country is in a difficult situation. The economy is bad. People are unhappy. Maybe. Asterisk. Maybe what? Madou's voice had risen. Maybe we should give the country back to France? Maybe we should return to colonial days? Traoré raised his hand. Enough. There's nothing left to talk about. Asterisk. He picked up the phone and called the palace guard commander. Come upstairs immediately. Asterisk. A few minutes later, the guard commander entered the room. He immediately noticed the determination on Traoré's face. Asterisk. Commander, General Khanat is hereby relieved of all his duties. Remove him from the palace immediately. His military rank is also revoked. From now on, he is only a civilian citizen. Asterisk. Khanat's face turned pale. Mr. President, don't make such a quick decision. Maybe we can talk. Maybe we can find a solution. Asterisk. There's nothing left to talk about, Musa. You are now just a citizen of this country. That's all. And if you try to continue these plans of yours, the consequences will be much more severe. Asterisk, the guard commander touched Connaught's arm. General, Connaught, please. Asterisk, Connaught stood up. He looked at Traoré one last time. I wanted the best for this country. Asterisk, no, Musa. You wanted the best for your own interests. What's best for this country is respecting its people's decisions and preserving its independence. Now go. Asterisk, as Connaught left the room, his steps were heavy. The guard commander followed him. When the door closed, the room was plunged into deep silence. Traoré turned to the window again. Dawn had now completely broken. Life was beginning to stir in the streets of Ouagadougou. People were going to work. Children were preparing for school. Life was continuing. But Traoré's world had completely changed. Asterisk, Mr. President, said Mamadou. What are we going to do now? Asterisk, first, we'll control the situation in the army. We need to identify the commanders Connaught mentioned. We'll find out who is cooperating with him. Asterisk, the phone rang. It was the Chief of General Staff. Asterisk, Mr. President, I heard that General Connaught has been relieved of duty. Do we need to hold a meeting in the army? Asterisk, yes. An urgent command meeting in 2 hours. All senior commanders should be there. No one should be missing. Asterisk, understood, sir. I'm making the necessary calls immediately. Asterisk, 2 hours later, Burkina Faso's army's most senior commanders gathered in the palace's meeting hall. The hall had a tense atmosphere. Everyone was wondering about the reason for Connaught's dismissal. When Traoré entered the hall, he felt everyone's curious and worried looks on him. He went to the head of the table and began speaking while standing. Asterisk, friends, I had to make a difficult decision this morning. General Connaught has been relieved of duty. The reason is that he was engaged in activities that threatened our country's security. Asterisk, a slight murmur rose in the hall. The commanders looked at each other. Asterisk, I cannot share the details here, but know this, Connaught was plotting against our country's independence. He was cooperating with foreign powers. Asterisk, this statement brought the hall to its feet. The commanders began talking in amazement. Asterisk, I trust this country's army. But at the same time, I want you to know that if there is anyone among us who does not respect our people's will and cooperates with foreign powers, they will share the same fate. Asterisk, the Chief of General Staff stood up. Mr. President, our army is loyal to you and our country. What Connaught did is unacceptable. We are always with you. Asterisk, other commanders also expressed support. But Traoré was listening to all of them carefully. He was trying to understand who was sincere and who was only expressing support because they had to. He was examining their faces, their tone of voice, their body language. The commanders mentioned in Connaught's plans would be especially noted. Asterisk, after the meeting, when Traoré was alone, he fell into deep thought. The Connaught incident was not just a betrayal. This was also an indication of how fragile a balance the country was in. He needed to make more effort to completely break French influence. But at the same time, he shouldn't trust anyone too much. Asterisk, in the evening hours, the press secretary entered the room. Asterisk, Mr. President, the media is asking questions about Connaught's dismissal. What should we say? Asterisk, say this. General Connaught resigned from his position for personal reasons, and we thank him for his services. Asterisk, won't we say anything about the real reason? Asterisk, no. Sharing such sensitive issues with the public could harm national security. The people only know what they need to know. Asterisk, that night, Traoré sat at his desk until late hours. He was thinking about who he could bring to replace Connaught. But more importantly, he was planning what he could do to prevent such betrayals from happening again. He had to establish the balance between trust and suspicion. Asterisk, the next morning, At the National Security meeting, he made new decisions. Intelligence services would be strengthened. All personnel within the army would be re-evaluated. All unofficial contacts with foreign countries would be closely monitored. A new loyalty verification system would be established for all senior officials. Every communication, every meeting, every financial transaction would be scrutinized. This country paid heavy prices to achieve its independence, he said at the meeting, and we will do whatever is necessary to preserve this independence. For weeks, they tracked Connaught's conspirator network. Intelligence reports showed that he was just the beginning. There was a network in the army, in the civilian bureaucracy, even in the business world, that wanted to re-establish France's influence. But each identified person was being dismissed from duty. Each uncovered plan was being thwarted. Every movement was being meticulously monitored. A month later, Connaught left the country. The official statement was that he wanted to receive education in foreign countries, but everyone knew the truth. He was now an unwanted man in Burkina Faso. French intelligence services helped him settle in Ivory Coast, where he began working for a consulting company. But his influence in Burkina Faso was completely over. Traoré had learned a lot from this incident, that even the people he trusted most could betray, that preserving independence required constant struggle, and how great his responsibility to the people was. The decision he made at that dawn was not just the dismissal of a general. This was a demonstration of Burkina Faso's determination on the path to true independence. And Traoré knew that he would not walk this path alone, that with the support of his people, he could overcome any obstacle. In this struggle for the country's future, suspicion was as important as trust. And that day, Traoré had learned both to trust and to doubt. The betrayal had wounded him deeply, but it had also made him stronger. From now on, he would be more careful, more vigilant, more protective of his country's interests. The investigation revealed that Connaught's network was larger than initially thought. Several other officers were quietly transferred to less sensitive positions. Some civilian officials were also reassigned. The French mining company lost its operating license and was forced to leave the country. The message was clear. Burkina Faso would not tolerate any interference in its sovereignty. As the sun fully rose over Ouagadougou that morning, lbrahim. Traoré stood by his window, watching his people begin their day. They had no idea how close their country had come to losing its hard-won independence. But their president had protected them, and he would continue to do so. The price of freedom was eternal vigilance. And Traoré was prepared to pay that price.